I'm here today to talk to you about a couple of pieces of legislation that came out of the California Assembly that are related to climate change and carbon emissions reporting. So we have SB 253, which is known as the Climate Corporate Data Accountability Act. And we also have SB 261, which is known as the Greenhouse Gases Climate-Related Financial Risk piece of legislation. As I mentioned, both passed the California Assembly last week, and they are now sitting on Governor Newsom's desk with a deadline for signature by October 14th. Essentially, what these bills in their entirety do is they begin the phase of mandatory carbon accounting and climate reporting for companies that either are based in California or do business in California. So essentially, SB 253 is going to require companies that have over $1 billion in annual revenue to report out on their annual greenhouse gas emissions for scopes 1, 2, and 3. So their direct and their indirect emission sources. So that rolls up and includes their supply chain. And then SB 261 is going to require companies over $500 million in annual revenue to report annually on their climate risks. So it's really kind of looking at the financial implications of climate change and climate risk for large companies. And on the surface, these bills may seem like they only implicate large publicly traded companies or large privates. They actually have the potential to start to trickle down to small to medium-sized enterprises as well, particularly those companies that roll up into the supply chain of larger, more complex businesses. So, for example, if you sell to a large publicly traded retailer in California, you should expect to start getting questions about your carbon footprint. And as we've seen in California, as California legislation goes on climate and sustainability issues, the United States tends to follow. So there are some pending regulatory actions that are in the works from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission that may be coming down the pike in the not too distant future as well. But from our perspective, what we see is the opportunity right now for companies to start to measure their carbon footprint, to be prepared to be in compliance with this new regulation, and also to help them start to identify and understand the climate impact associated with their business in a way that enables them to measure their carbon footprint, but also use that carbon footprint to start to understand the cost implications. So, for example, we've seen some companies that have measured their carbon footprint and have seen climate implications and seen the climate role that their footprint has, but also seeing the opportunity to reduce costs associated with minimizing and mitigating their carbon footprint. So outside of the legislative and the regulatory impacts of this bill, we see a pretty interesting business opportunity for companies to increase relationship with key stakeholders and be able to report out effectively, transparently, and also pave the way to some potential cost savings associated with making their businesses leaner, greener, meaner, and more efficient. We at Sensiba do offer carbon accounting and consulting services, and our experts are standing by and would be happy to talk to you about the implications of this new legislation and also how you can start to take your climate journey down the path with us here at Sensiba.